All right, welcome to the Maturity Project. I am your host, Chad Everett-Broshears, and I have two great guests that actually, at this point, I don't know if I can even call you guys guests anymore.
I've got my fixtures.
Yeah, fixtures in the background. No, you're right here, man. So my other hosts, yeah. So I'll let them introduce themselves real quick. So we'll start right here to my right.
Hi, my name is Misty Tate, and I am a functional fitness coach and a holistic health and wellness coach.
Fantastic. And to your right, the gentleman over here.
Yeah, Justin Ropel, so corporate sales executive, here for to offer some insights. So thanks for having me, Chad.
Love it. Love having you back. You guys have wonderful insights. And today's conversation is going to be one of the ones that seem to keep showing up every single day. I don't know how many times you guys see it in the news feed when you go to your social media and you see something. But there seems to be a whole lot of it, which is somebody's hurt me, relationships suck, I put a new picture of a different person up every couple of months, my relationship status is complicated, and then you get inundated with all of these ads that pop up in the news feed for dating and all that stuff. So today's conversation is modern dating, and what the hell have we done? Right? Yeah. What did we create, man? This Frankenstein's monster of the void of intimacy being filled by social media. Oh, and the I celebrity. I'm a celebrity. You guys are celebrities?
Yeah. Apparently we are.
Yeah, we are. We got our own YouTube channel.
We are the hosts of the Maturity Project.
Yes! Right. So, now, guys, with the perspectives on this, there's what, right? How many different types of dating avenues are there that we know of? Right, so if you can, give me some examples of some dating avenues, places, opportunities. Where can people go to find that person that they desire? So just some ideas that come to mind.
Couple of ideas that come to mind. Obviously, in modern dating, there are the dating apps, which I'm not a fan of. And then some people have mentioned to me lately that I should go to church, which I don't do, but that might be a good place to meet someone, right? Or, just like if you're, and then I'll hear like on some of the podcasts and like dating coaches and stuff, I'll say, go to a coffee shop and find some person to start up a conversation with. So, hey, maybe that works for some people.
Okay, so we've got church, dating apps, and we got coffee shops.
Yes.
Yeah. So the espresso date. Right? Sure. Let's move this thing along pretty quick. It's just chowder. Justin, what do you got?
Well, I think the ideal, if you can find it, is some mutual acquaintance. Yeah. I think the challenge that I see with that is, at least on a personal level, is the older that we get in years, the less common it is to have any single people running around. Everyone's into some level of a relationship, it seems. At least in the circles I keep. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I have the tendency to be the Lone Ranger, so it's but that would be ideal.
Yeah.
Another obvious one that I agree with Misty about the dating apps, but there is the bar.
Yeah.
Not a good situation.
No, right. I don't agree. Or I agree there.
Yeah. You got bars, you got nightclubs, you got club Publix, by the way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I've heard from men that Whole Foods is a good place to meet.
Right. You actually have places like grocery stores. There's so the point of it is that there's all kinds of places to meet people.
Sure.
Right? You could be out just shopping for something and somebody comes up and approaches you, right? Mm-hmm. So, we have a lot of different avenues to find that person, but we have our challenges associated with everything, right? So my experience of all of this dating world stuff, which I'm not in it anymore, right? And thankfully, because it is a chaotic world, what I've experienced out of it, though, is that most people want to find the person that fixes their life. And it depends on what kind of fixing that they're after and their tolerance for somebody else. And how long are they willing to tolerate it before that person finds out the mystery of what fixes them? Because nobody communicates anymore.
Right.
I'll talk to you, and if you call me, don't call me. Text me. I will, I'm going to sit back and infer everything that I want you to think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I've got time to think about it because it's text.
Oh, yeah. I don't need to
Right?
reply right away unless you
Yeah.
have that little scene check mark.
Yeah.
Right? So what are some of the avenues that you guys have experienced whenever it comes to communication and dating? Or how do you take, because, you know, we've all played around in the world for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
But how do you, like, what would you say is, let's start off with the success model. So when you finally met somebody you're interested in, what would you say is your most successful model of communication? We'll focus on the communication first. What's the most successful model of communication? Like we just mentioned, there's text, there's phone calls. Like, what is it that you prefer yourself? Some people write a letter.
Yeah, I prefer phone calls.
Okay.
I think, and then I've said this before, I prefer to meet someone pretty quickly, like in person, because I'm all about reading people and their body language and their facial expressions and things. You know,
So
that's
what's
just
your time frame on that, by the way? You mentioned it last
within a
week.
week.
Within a week.
I want to meet someone within a week where we're just either sitting, and I don't want it to be, and I'm going to go into this later because I did have a date recently where it was where they invited me to do something where they didn't really have to talk to me a lot, where we had to talk, but it wasn't really something that we had to like face-to-face talk. So I feel like that was almost like, that wouldn't have been a good idea. Like, it's like going to a movie on your first date, you know? But yeah, within a week I think is good, and I think I'd rather either talk to them in person or talk to them on the phone.
Yeah.
Text would be last for me.
And it's a good way to put it, right? Because what
Yeah.
we're doing is, first off, like when you first meet somebody, how do you even get the conversation going? We got to talk. You got to figure out how to communicate.
Right.
Right. So, and then from there, we'll talk about like how, like what's the most ideal direction when it comes to first dates and those kind of things. So, because what we're missing, and I'll get to you in just a second, Justin, is that what we're missing is that nobody really has a process anymore. Everyone has the game, but nobody really has this is just who I am. Right, so we're missing it. So the goal today is to help get people to have a little bit of an understanding on, you better show up.
Right.
Don't show up as somebody else.
Right.
So communication, text message, but that's not the preferred. Phone call and meet them within the first week.
Yes.
Okay, Justin, what's your preferred communication style?
I would completely agree with her.
Okay.
I know it's not the in vogue thing anymore because I think the in vogue thing is definitely text. But I much more prefer an old-fashioned conversation, and if that conversation can happen in person, all the better.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, so in person.
Absolutely. I mean, that's not always doable. You know, we all have schedules and.
What about FaceTime? You know.
Well, that's a good point. And
that's the next best thing. Right?
It is.
Yeah.
Yes.
Video calls.
Yeah, video
right?
call. Yeah.
Not everybody's on the Apple bandwagon.
Right. I'm not either. I'm not, but I still call it FaceTime. When I'm in front of someone, it's like the name for it now, you know.
Yeah. So in person. Now, would you guys say that there is a time that texting is ideal?
I would never say ideal, but I would say there's certainly a time where maybe it has its necessity.
Right. Yeah.
You know, if I'm at work, or you know, if I'm on my way and want to let you know I'm on my way.
Or if you're at a really loud football game and you can't.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair,
Sounds very specific.
Fair. Yeah.
You know, well, and to add to something, to at least expand on it, because like nothing's meritless, right? Nothing is without value. So like you said, there are times, but it's not ideal. For me, I've always liked to make things flirtatious and fun.
Sure.
Right? So text could be flirtatious and fun.
Yeah.
You know, like, hey, you know, and like something that's just like, that makes somebody smile, right? Like, hey, just thinking about you.
Yeah.
You know, or I stubbed my toe and I didn't scream because you were on my mind.
Or a picture of something cute that you saw. That,
Yeah.
you know,
Not the
just to make them
substance.
laugh. You
Yes.
know. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was having a bad day and I thought of you. You know,
Yeah.
and you changed it, and you get that Hallmark moment, right? You know, I've often joked about the adult version of Hallmark, but I don't mean the XXX version. I just mean like the adult situation version,
Right.
right? Like, you know,
Mm-hmm.
so there's all kinds of ways to play around and be playful, but that's why it's like, look, most people overdo one. Right? One is going to be
Yes.
their preferred, but if the person you're talking to that's not their preferred method, you got a mix match, right? Like love languages, you get a mix match in communication style, right? So what do we do with that, and how can we expand this to be like, you know what? Look, texting's here to stay.
Yeah.
And until it's replaced by some other advancement that we'll complain about because it'll be changing the past, right?
Yeah.
Into what the future becomes, right?
Yeah.
So we've got some values in it, right? That in person, like Justin said, there can be some problems with that one,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because what if our schedules don't allow for it?
Mhm.
Yeah.
So how do you get the next best option? Well, you brought up the suggestion about FaceTime
Mm-hmm.
or whatever
Video
video
chat,
sharing,
yeah.
chatting kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
So what other, so now that we've got a communication system down, right,
Mhm.
to a degree, we got something. Is there certain kind of conversations that are more desirable to have in the initial phase?
Yeah, I think, but I mean, this is just where I am in my life right now. I'm all about honesty and openness and ask me anything. Like, there's not very much that I won't share, especially if you're really trying to get to know me. I would much rather go past the surface level. Oh, the weather's been great, and can you believe like how like I mean just or oh, did like politics or something like that, something that you can see on the news, or those things are great to discuss, but. Like, I want to know where are you from? How were you raised? Were both your parents involved? Like, do you have kids? Do you want to have kids? Like, those things are really important to
Mhm.
know, like right up front. But I think also that's just who I am. I think that's different for everyone.
So like week one,
Yeah.
right? You would
Oh,
want to
yeah.
have certain conversations, just the basis of you exist, who you are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And because we'll get to the next part of that, which is the don'ts.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So Justin, what's some of the do's when it comes to what's the thing that you're preferred on the first week of communication?
Yeah, so I want to do my best, at least at a 10,000 foot level, understand what makes them go.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what are their motivators? You know, what are where are their interests?
And what way though? As far as a person for work, for relationships, for free time, anything specific that's the go factor, the motivating, what they're motivated towards?
Yeah, I mean, so for me, I want to know that they've got, you know, a career,
Mhm.
and that, you know, they're not freeloading, for lack of a better. Beside that, that's kind of secondary to me.
Right.
I want to know when, like, how are they living their lives
Mhm.
outside of their work
Mhm.
bubble.
Very important.
You know, what are we doing with our free time, or like where do they enjoy spending it,
Yeah.
and doing what? Because ultimately, I mean, I'm asking the questions, but I'm subconsciously figuring out if I line up with them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just passing zero judgment here, but like, you know, if I'm talking with somebody that's a professional bartender and they're up and out and running around till 2, 3, or 4 o'clock in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that just doesn't line up with the way I lead my life.
Right, especially
So-
since you're part of the 5 a.m. club.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah.
So, you know, you know, that's an
Yeah.
extreme, one instance kind of an example.
Yeah.
but
It's a good framing tool though.
It is.
Right.
It is.
So, and with that, it's like, so we've got to find out like moral values, right? You want to find out, like as you're saying, you want to know they're up to something.
Yes.
You want to
Yeah.
make sure the person isn't just out to find somebody they can use, right?
Correct.
Or somebody they can live off of, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
So you're verifying that they have substance
Correct.
first.
Correct.
How much of that, so within the first week, you can get a pretty good gauge of that, would you say?
I think so. If you ask the right questions, I've been guilty of not, but he's still on you.
So I think you determine one of two things.
Yeah.
You either have somebody that is willing to communicate, and then yes, to your question, you do learn, or you get somebody that's kind of hedging around. And at this point, that kind of answers my question too.
Right.
You know, so so one way or another.
Right.
Yeah.
So you're a little bit more strategic. It's not just dogs in a park sniffing each other's butts, right? You guys are more like, hey, I've been there, I've sniffed around the park myself. I'm kind of done with that. I want to, find out who I'm going to share the toys with, right?
Yeah, it's got to be worth it. It's got to be worth the time that we're putting in,
Right.
Otherwise, why are we doing it?
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's within the first week, right? Because would you say that there's like a unconscious level, like layers, like 1 to 3 to intimacy, something like that? Like most people talk like don't communicate with a person until this day. Like the game they're being taught.
Yeah.
So it's 1 to 3 to intimacy. It's like, what is it? Third date's like okay to sleep with them, kind of thing.
I used to subscribe to that, but now I think it just has to be just at the right time, and that could be date 2 or 3, which usually it's not. I found as I've gotten older, I want to wait longer just to make sure, like before you get close. But there's levels of intimacy. There's holding hands. There's kissing. There's there's levels all the way up into just before you get to the actual act of sex. So there's a lot of intimacy that can happen without even touching. So that's that's all a matter of just who is that person, and do I get the sense that someone's trying to push me into that either? Because if I feel pushed at all, I'm gonna pull away.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No forcing this.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Justin?
Oh, first date.
Make sure you always remember her name.
No. So I don't subscribe to any given rule. I do think it's natural. Now I'm gonna put a little bit of a curve on this guy. As a male out there, there needs to be, in my experiences, it's all I can speak of, there does have to be a little bit of an awareness to some level of a physical connection before it starts to feel like maybe that person's not there for the right intentions.
Yeah.
And that's not to push anybody.
I think as a woman, I think we know that if we're willing to touch someone within the first few dates, I think a guy should know, if I'm willing to touch you, then I'm willing to continue to go out. And that could probably lead to something. I will not touch a man that I wouldn't possibly have sex with. Seriously.
Right.
And
there's the cues, right?
Yeah.
We all have our cues to say yes or no, or hesitation or whatever, just like, hey, let's get more further along. So before we get too far on the full-blown physical intimacy portion of it, we also have the wrecking ball side of it, right? So then we'll keep it at, because the reason why I wanted the 1, 2, 3 to intimacy is when some people have a way of feeling it out, and they know when they first meet somebody, if that's somebody that they want to really spend more time with. Others, there's a vetting process, and there's I've been burnt here before, so I'm going to slow it down, or I'm going to try a different tactic to make sure that I'm connecting differently. So what we end up with is, we end up with our own unique way of doing it, which is, in my opinion, the better version than to take somebody else's game, game board thing or whatever, like Chutes and Ladders or whatever, and be like, those aren't the rules. You can't slide down that ladder. You haven't even rolled the dice yet.
Yeah.
So I don't want to play the board game version of dating, and
No.
I'm sure that no one else does really. But yet there's like somebody had to set rules in place for people to practice and play to figure out what
Well,
works.
and to sell a lot of books.
Yeah, no.
I don't know if you've ever heard of the book, The Rules, which was a very, very popular book for women back in the 90s and early 2000s. And it was like women thought, oh, if he doesn't do this, or I'm going to wait this long. And that's where a lot of women got the ideas of the rules, because it actually was called The Rules. And so many women these days have kept that. And we are way past the point of needing rules like that.
Yeah.
I think it's just kind of it's antiquated.
Yeah. Well, to add this in, and then we'll get over to Justin before I lose this thought too, though, is it's kind of like when you're dealing with an employee, being a company owner myself and have trained many people, how to become, successful business people, is macro to micro, or micro to macro, right? Beginning steps, micromanagement. Because they don't know enough about the business, they don't know enough about the process of being an employee. They've got to be taught and have their hand held. Macro is, you know enough, you can figure this out, come up with your own unique thing, you still want to be productive, you still want to have an outcome that we all agree that we can keep you on board for, right? Don't break these rules, you knew those in the micro phase. In the dating world, people need that micro to macro to get them to understand how to date each other so that they're not a wrecking ball right out of the cradle and they're a wrecking ball for the rest of their life. So they have something to give them parameters to practice. They're like, I like this, I don't like this. This is a problem, that's not a problem. And this other stuff just has little to no meaning, but it still has something at some point on that. That's the foundation. So with that, that's kind of the way that I view it. I don't know if you guys can see the merit in that, because the game could be that just at the beginning, the micro. Give people rules. Don't call the person in 3 days. Well, that could be a good rule if the person has a lot of patience issues.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I just want to text them right now. I really want to call them right now. But you just got the phone with them.
Yeah.
Right? Slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to be on the other side going, oh, God, I just really like that conversation, but I need a minute.
Yeah.
How many of those do you need before you lose the chemistry?
Right.
Right. So anyway, we'll switch back over to Justin, and then we can explore that a little bit more. Unless you guys have something you want to say to that, and then we can.
No.
No,
I'm good with that. I think that was a great explanation.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just let's not play the board game unless you just have to learn that for life for a minute.
Absolutely.
Right. But I'm not a fan of the fixed thing. It should always be done this way.
No.
Well, I mean, there's so much uniqueness. There are over 8 billion people in this world. I say this all the time. There's no way you can classify us all into, and we all come from different places and different backgrounds. We cannot follow we all can't follow certain sets of rules. We're coming from different cultures. We're male and female, so it just it won't work. It will never work to just say, this is how it should be done.
Yeah.
Well, and to add to that, I would argue that if you're spending some time with someone and those communication channels that we just spoke of are adequately opened, those sorts of board game rules get kind of talked about anyway. I mean, like, this is how I go about this is my expectation,
You can easily say something like, hey, if I text you too much, let me know.
Sure,
or if I don't text you enough, let me know. Let's be honest.
Statement.
Absolutely.
Let's just be honest. How much would you like to be texted?
That's a very mature approach to it, though.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that we have to help people to get to.
Mm-hmm.
Because most of us have no clarity on that.
Yeah.
Right?
Correct.
But you give parameters to something, right?
Right.
So trainer wheels. Right? It's like, riding a bicycle. If I rode a bicycle the way I do it now, back then, I would have never learned to ride. Little side note, guys. I don't ride a bike now. But it was a trick statement. All right, so to the not so goods, right?
Yeah.
So if we had to say, 1, 2, 3 to intimacy, well, we could say, just to put some sort of parameters around it, the first week would be 1. And how many times do you see that person, that kind of thing. So what would you say are the don'ts in week 1?
The don'ts For me, in week 1, I think would just be like, what do you mean as far as just seeing them? Or
Whatever,
just
like,
anything.
So, like, cause we've had, like, would you say you've had more successful dating experiences or more unsuccessful dating experiences?
Probably more unsuccessful
Okay.
dating experiences.
Sure.
Justin,
And-
same thing?
100%.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest don'ts for me is a lack of communication. And then expecting that I'm still going to be around or want to go out with you when you decide that, oh, it's Friday night, I might want to go out tonight. First off, I do have a little rule. Don't ask me the same day that, oh, what are you doing this evening? I probably already have plans, and if I don't, I'm going to make up that I have plans. Because if you can't ask me even the day before, like, come on. Don't you assume that as an adult I have a life, especially on Friday or Saturday.
Okay.
Like, that bothers me when people don't just assume that, hey, I better get on her calendar, you know, and I mean, and it doesn't even have to be it's even if you text me on a Thursday and say, hey, I got this thing going on tomorrow night, do you want to go? And I understand if it's last minute, that's fine. If you want to be spontaneous and we have been dating for a little bit and you say, okay, it's Friday night, are you free tonight? That's fine too, but not in the first week or two. But you need to plan. You need to be a planner.
So what does it say to you though if somebody waits to that last second? Like,
That
for an
says
option?
to me that you're not a planner, that you're slightly kind of that's irresponsible to me. It also says to me that you might have had other plans and now those are broken, and now, oh, wait a minute, she's sitting over here in the background. Let me use her as my second choice.
Right. So you're an option in that scenario.
Yeah, I don't want to be
And
that kind of
nobody wants
option.
to feel like an
No.
option, right? So a lot of people don't realize their actions say something more.
Right.
So,
And if you're smart, you figure that out pretty quick. You don't even have to be that smart to figure out that you're an option. You're one of their many options.
Yeah.
so week
It's
one.
it's about valuing your time.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, you stole my thunder here a little bit.
Oh,
I
I'm sorry, Justin.
Not at all. I need to be taking some notes, I think. But she hit the nail on the head, and I would go as I would add to the fact that while I've certainly had many more negative experiences dating than positive experiences, front row center stage is a communication problem.
Mm-hmm.
It's it's a pretty rampant one. It's I would say it's the number one reason that things don't develop.
Okay.
Yeah.
So communication's a big issue, and it's the lack of communicating.
Pretty much,
Okay.
yes. Yeah.
All right. So no last minute scheduling, nothing like that. Like well ahead of time. Make sure that you've got something spoken and that you're communicating. So that's what I'm picking up so far
Yeah.
from both of you.
Yeah.
So maybe it's because I'm the guy. I don't mind being a little more spontaneous, a little bit. But I certainly value what you have to say on that, Misty. Coming from a male standpoint, I would not feel good about picking up a phone the day of and inviting a romantic interest out that same day. Like I would know better.
Like I
in my
said,
own
unless you
mind.
had been seeing each other for a little while and it's
Right.
kind of already assumed
Right.
we're going to see each other this weekend, you
Yeah.
know? But that's a different time. We're talking about the first week.
Yeah.
The first week, don't just call me on Friday and say,
Right.
hey, what are you doing tonight?
Yeah. My bed might get cold tonight. What are you doing? Yeah.
Right.
Would you mind coming over? I think I'll cook you some Brussels sprouts.
Right? No,
I got the Netflix if you want to chill. Don't worry, I got the ad free,
Yeah.
but you won't be watching it. Right? That's the modern chaos, right? So, all right. So let's say sex comes up week one. The conversation about sex comes up week one.
Okay.
How do you feel about that, Misty?
If
when it
it's
comes
just
up.
a conversation, that's fine. I'm very open.
Okay.
Matter of fact, I would love it if someone wants to talk about it in an adult way.
Okay.
Not
How would that be though?
an adult way would be like, well, what's been your experience with sex? How open are you to, trying new things? Like, or do you enjoy sex? Like, because there are people out there that don't.
Yeah.
They've got trauma, they've got background issues, they've got things that have happened, and they are not in a place to do it. Or maybe they're in the part of their life where they don't want to do it anymore. There's a lot of women who hit menopause, and this is a terrible thing. And because I have friends that are above menopause age, and they think that is the end of sex for women. But I'm here to tell you, as a menopause certified coach, that it doesn't have to be the end of sex. You can have sex for the rest of your life, right? And you can do it with hormone replacement. There's lots of things that so just know that.
Yeah.
So a lot of women, they think, oh, well, I guess I'm done. And then they're like, well, I guess any man that I'm going to have to be with is going to understand that, So anyway, I'm getting on a rant here, but that is, as long as someone says, hey, can I ask you a question? Are you open to talking about sex? Instead of just saying, hey, what position do you like?
Tell me the secret Rubik's Cube.
Yeah. Where's your buttons?
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you do for a living? Now let's make the rest of this week about sex.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Justin, week 1, sex comes up.
I would tell you that I would not bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
That would be tabled for another time for the most part. But if it were brought to my attention, I'm a relatively open book.
I think that's very fair. I think he's
Yeah.
probably right to let the woman bring it up, because women almost expect that men will bring it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Let's
that's a
turn
very
it.
mature approach, Justin, because like a lot of times we just think, oh, here we go.
Hey,
He
what are
wants
the
to talk
gas,
about
man? You're the
sex.
brakes.
Go figure, a man that wants to talk about sex.
Now that's a rare. Yeah. No, wow, you are a very rare person. You want to talk about sex your first week? Okay. So, and it's more of a, like, how the flow goes. But you see, there's a lot of people that they'll make it that way. I mean, my experience was in the dating world. I've had first dates. The girl couldn't remember my name and asked me to take her home.
Wow.
Now, I'm not saying I'm like some sort of like pickup artist. That's not me. I've
Mhm.
always been the guy that just wants to know the person.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, I think we're just starved for intimacy, because that seemed to be like direct access to somebody wanting to sleep with you.
Mhm.
And I'm like, that's where it became like the economy of sex became something that had less value to me.
Mhm.
Not in the sense it was less valuable as a whole, it just didn't have the value in the front end.
Mhm.
Because like one more girl that wants to sleep with me right away, okay. That's not a
Yeah.
brag, by the way, for any and everybody. I promise you I'm not trying to brag.
No, but I mean, I feel that way sometimes myself. I'm like, wow, can I just find someone that's not just trying to sleep with me, Because, I mean, I think a lot of people are just looking at dating that way. Like, oh, who can I find to give me some sexual validation, to give me my own validation,
Yeah.
And that's not my approach, but that is a lot of people's approach.
Yeah.
Well, and in all in all sincerity, like joking aside, I wouldn't see long term. I would all. How do I want to say that? Immediate sex on the first date probably gets pretty close to eliminating that person from long term consideration.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not that the sex wouldn't be fun or enjoyable, but there's.
I agree with you.
Yeah,
You gotta wonder, is this something, and you will find yourself naturally wondering, is this something that they do all the time? Do they not have restraint? Do they not want to get to know me?
right.
They don't even know me.
Right.
Why would they want to get to that level of intimacy right away?
Yeah.
Unless there was some type of understanding that this is a date/hookup.
Mhm.
This isn't really like I'm looking for a relationship, because there are different types of dates.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
So.
I would say that we could add layers of intimacy, because intimacy is not sex. It
Mhm.
is a way of describing sex,
Mm-hmm.
but that's physical intimacy. Intimacy itself is the connection and closeness you have with another person.
Right.
So you could have the first date, and then they've got to how many layers of intimacy where they're finally going, I feel so close to you.
Yeah.
And that gives that validation to people that want to sleep with the other person right away. But at what maturity level is it that person's coming from?
Right.
I use sex to validate myself, and I have nothing but guy friends. So then it's like, how many of your guy friends did you sleep with that let you come out tonight? Right? It's like, because people, we just got this really mixed economy now when it comes to relationships.
Yeah.
Whenever religion was dominant in the country, we had a different type of economy when it came to that. And what I mean, the economic structure of relationships, and not meaning the business side of it, just the structure and strategy, the ecosystem of the relationship. It was different. Because then it's like, you know, I'd be known throughout town for being easy.
Yeah.
Now it's like, it's like the other dude just left and I got coffee brewing. You want a cup real quick? You know? I got a schedule. Come on, we got 3 hours. The other guy's on his way. You know, it's like, and I don't mean like just women are doing this. I mean, everybody seems to be in this single serving relationship mindset.
Yeah.
So today, I'd like to be able to create more, like cast light on those shadows. Right? Not that you guys live in those shadows, but you have been engaged with people that are.
Yeah.
You know, and you both come from being truly, deeply good people in my eyes. So, and that's something that gets tarnished the more darkness that you deal with, right? Or the more the shadow over people's needs to be filled and they take from others. I'm not saying those are bad people either. They're just immature.
Yeah, they haven't fully reached their potential.
Yeah. So aside from sex, what are some of the other week one don't goes? Like the ones that are like, all right, you're turning me off here.
Too much communication.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And I don't like the lack of communication, but I can't, like, and it's hard to say exactly how much that is, because let's say if you really did like somebody, but let's say you don't really know how much you like someone yet, you know, and then there's just that oh my gosh, he's texting me again. It's like the 20th time today. Like, didn't we already talk about this? So yeah, there is a fine line, and I don't know where it lies. You know, but I will say I've been irritated with too much communication. But I may just be different. Like that's my unique perspective.
So
Yeah.
if that's the case, how would you set the pace?
I would let them know. Usually if someone is texting me too much, I'll tell them, hey, I'm busy doing this right now. Or, hey, I usually try to let someone know my schedule. Hey, if I don't answer, it's because I'm at work at 6:30 in the morning and I'm not done until 2:30 or 3 in the afternoon. So if I don't answer during that time, then, you know, and then they'll usually kind of get the hint, okay, I can't be texting her all morning, you know, and then usually but I mean, I haven't had this experience in a while. I haven't had anyone like texting too much. If anything, it is more of a lack of communication. Like, when is he going to text me? You know,
Right.
like, so, but there are the ones that is just like, oh, wow, man, he must not have really very much to do. Or it makes me think he must not have a life of his own,
Right.
you know?
So getting too many texts in one day, what's the distance between one text to the next before you think it's not enough? How many days? How much time? What's
I'd
the
say
way
24 hours. That would make me think, wow, what's going on? I didn't even get at least a good morning or a good night or something like that. I don't require that much. I would maybe a text or two a day, and if we get into a funny conversation about something, then we text more.
Yeah.
But don't, if you, let's say you're looking at your text messages, right? I find this is with anyone, right? You're looking at the back and forth in your text messages. If yours are 3 or 4 times more than the other person, then there's an imbalance, right? But if you can look at your text messages and there's about 50-50, maybe 40-60, and then that seems like there's a good balance, right? And I've been able to do that with myself before. I've realized that I was texting too much. Like, oh my gosh, I sent 4 text messages to every message he sent, you know? So I'm not saying I'm not guilty of it. I'm just saying that there needs to be a balance of communication.
Okay, good. Justin?
Yeah, so this one might sound odd, but you know, any sense that while there is communication, any tones of condescending, self-centered, like, you know, and that's not to say we don't sit down and talk about priorities and like the style within which you conduct your business, but you can sniff out a bad character pretty quick if you're paying attention to some of those cues as well. So that would be a week 1 immediate termination.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. And how would you gauge the tone? Is it just in the sentence structuring? If it's via text, right? Or do you mean by a conversation over the phone or
I think-
in person? Or what would that communication style be?
That would almost have to be at least over the phone.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think you've got to be very careful not to put too much emotion behind a text,
Mhm.
because you can get up in your own head pretty quickly.
Lost in translation.
That,
Mhm.
Exactly right. Exactly.
Mhm.
Couldn't have said it any better.
Yeah.
All right. So definitely, if you're gonna text, there needs to be some phone calls to at least gauge the person's personality.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So know how they communicate in a joking sense, flirtatious sense, in a serious way, and pay attention to that enough that you can potentially read it through text.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So you set a narrative from the conversation so that you can facilitate that through the text versus inferring what you believe they think because you haven't talked to them before.
Yeah, and I think as you go along, you're going to start to see what their texting style is.
Mm-hmm.
My son said one of the funniest things to me about 10 years ago. Like, he had a cell phone and he was, all into the young way of texting. And he said to me, "Mom, why are you always so upset with me?" And I was like, "What are you talking about?" And he goes, "You don't use any emojis when you're texting." And I'm like, I'm quick and I got stuff to do. I'm just trying to text you to the point. And I'm like, and then I realized that the younger generation uses emojis and that to try to capture, to let you know how they're feeling, right? So to me, it always made me think about it after that. I was thinking, I wonder if adults think that way. Like, if I didn't put a little smiley face afterward, do they think I'm upset?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So here's a rule: no eggplants or peaches on the first week.
No.
And your
No
text messages.
eggplants and peaches.
No
No.
eggplants and peaches. No
Don't
squirt
worry.
symbols or squirt guns.
But what if I'm a vegetarian?
I mean, you just don't talk about that food preference for a week. I mean, I don't know. I don't set the rules. I interpret them.
Cucumbers are all right?
Well, I mean, that usually indicates they're going to be alone.
Yeah.
I'm going grocery shopping. Here's the cucumber. Notice the link. What I'm doing tonight, Netflix on my own. The chill will be the cucumber. All right, that's enough. Jesus. All right, I've got out of hand here. Okay. So we know that that's there. So when would you say, what would you say that everybody, at least for the conversation we're having today, is intended for the people seeking intimacy? And by seeking intimacy is also typically combined with seeking partnership.
Right.
Not just seeking to get the itch scratched.
Right, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Not seeking my bed gets cold on that side,
Yeah.
and to keep my bed warmer.
Yeah.
We're not after that, right? That's not the conversations that we're having. Now
Yeah.
that's out there. And for me, training wheels. People
Yeah.
that are in that world, it's a training wheels world.
Those aren't
right?
relationships.
They're not. It's a
Yeah.
practice to find out how good you can be at something.
Right.
But if that's where you stay for too long, the world will become something you resent, especially when you see happy couples.
Yeah.
Because you'll wake up in the morning and realize you're lonely. And then you'll see people that have put in the work to create the bonds that we identify as a happy, healthy relationship and resent them.
Yeah.
All right, so right now we're just talking about the beginning stages. But at least now we've prefaced that, hey, this is what we're talking about. If you're a Tinder person, the app Tinder is the typical go-to for, you're not going on the date to remember much about the person.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it seems to be on the social media perspective of it. That's the one, like if you're on that, then you pretty much are single set, and we know what you're after. Right.
Yeah.
So, but then we have the different dating apps that are layered to what they're actually supposed to appeal to, right? eHarmony, we've got Christian Mingle, Farmers something or other, like all these, but they're intended to try to connect people with like interests, as we mentioned before, going places like Publix or Whole Foods or coffee shops. What we didn't mention is charity, fundraising, things like that. The things that has a wholesome value that would be associated with something you have interest in. And then if you meet somebody there that has those interests, you're more likely you're a common ground at least. Now you got to make sure the other parts of the attraction are there. That's what we can call it chemistry. So we've got the don'ts, and there's plenty of them, by the way, right? They say don't talk about sex, politics, or religion in the first date, right? Well, that could also be something that maybe you touch on in the first week or you don't. What would you say? Would you say touch on those 3 subjects the first week or no?
I think they could be touched on. I'd like to think that I could get a good view on politics for sure ahead of time. I think most people are going to do this. I think if you have the access to do it, you're going to Google them or you're going to look at their social media. I hope that people would do that with me. And it's not apparently obvious what I am on my social media, like as far as liberal or conservative or independent. But I would think that, if I go and look someone up, then and I have a thing that if I immediately see it, I'm gonna go, no, I don't want to talk to that person because I already know what that mindset is, right?
Mm-hmm.
So and there's a few things. There's things with religion to that respect. There's things with politics, and then if someone, obviously by their social media, I think some people, if they're mature, they'll keep their social media to but then they could be hiding things. They could be, maybe that doesn't mean maturity, that just means that they know what not to show.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to play the game. They know how to make themselves look mature, but they're not mature,
Right.
Or they're hiding things from somebody else. They've
Well,
got
so-
multiple people that they're,
And I'd also say with that is we have another layer that people are presenting parts of themselves.
Right.
And that's because of work.
Right.
Business, things
Right.
like that. And they
like
have-
my social media is not going to be a great indicator of all the other parts of my life because I do have to I'm running it as a business. You're not going to find out things like, you're not going to see me posted up with a bunch of drinks with my friends, even though I might do that sometimes, you're not going to see that on my social media. So you can't judge and gauge my social media and say, oh, she must never drink. Well, I do, like maybe once a month I'll go out with my friends, and I'll have a couple. And so I don't think that's, I don't want to tell people that stalking someone's social media is the best way to see who they are, right?
Yeah.
But as far as sex, politics, and religion, I do think they can be touched on with maturity and say, just to find out enough to know if you would even want to continue to talk to that person, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Justin, how
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can go with that too. I get
Yeah.
it, and it's also how you feel, right?
Right.
And Justin, where are you at with that?
Yeah, so I think the key, this isn't a play on words, but mature.
Mm-hmm.
So I think all 3 can be touched on, as long as it's handled in a mature way.
So you could provoke it then, to find out if that person has a maturity you're willing to deal or that you want to find.
I'm not necessarily saying that.
Okay.
No, I'm just suggesting that, for example, we could have opposing political views.
Yeah.
And, I don't lean heavy one direction or another, really. I'm personally more moderate anyhow. So we could have that conversation as long as you're not off the deep end one way or another.
That's exactly how I feel too.
Right.
We could be of different political views,
Yeah.
but don't be condescending, like you
Right.
said, that condescending tone. Whereas, oh, I can't believe you would believe that. Like, well, who do you think you are? Like, okay, then I'm done with you right now.
I
Like,
was
I don't
just
even
gonna
want to
say
hear anymore.
Well, it almost sounds like a pro for provoking a conversation, not necessarily provoking one to make it conflict oriented,
Right.
but just to find
Just
out
to get it
if
out.
they are on conflict oriented.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
don't talk about those things, but if you flip the coin over, you could
Yeah.
say, hey, you know what? I do want to at least understand where you are. Because week 1 is what? That's the
Yeah.
sitting in the restaurant and going, what are they having?
Yeah.
Where's the menu? I want to see if it's on the menu.
Yeah,
Right?
you
Week
don't
2
even
is
have
like,
to say and ask flat out. You can say, "Hey, did you see that in the news about?"
Mhm.
There's always something that you can say, and then you can say something like, "Well, I don't really go one way or the other. I'm kind of moderate. What do you think about that?" And
Yeah.
you're going to get a lot of information because usually people will tell you exactly what
Right. not like, okay, here's the light.
Yeah.
All right. What are you?
Interrogation.
It's it.
You
This is your
hypocrite?
one chance.
Are you a MAGA? I bet you didn't get vaccinated, did you? You know, like, it's like, holy crap, right? You turn the light on and be like, oh, you must be one of those Catholics, you know, or whatever. But, you know, it's the subtle conversations. And I'm not advocating to be sneaky either,
Yeah.
right? But it's to understand, because we all have an ideal person that we're looking for. So we could use these conversation topics. They tell you not to, but what if you could turn it into some magic? Right? Like, look, you know what? You may be really impassioned by something. You know, fantastic. Get impassioned.
Yeah.
Because the other person may be impassioned too.
Mhm.
You know, you also wouldn't want to be a passionate person and you're willing to trade that off just because the other person has some other value that you like.
Right.
You know, and I'm going to stifle my communication because I'm
Right.
afraid you're going to reject me.
Right.
When that's who you are, but it may take us 2 years to find out.
Right.
You know,
Big
that's 2
value.
years of your life.
Your big values have to come out quickly. Like one of my big values is fitness, obviously. So I don't care how you're moving, but I hope you're moving every day. But because if you tell me that all I do is sit around and watch movies, then that's not going to cut it for me. So it's values on all levels.
Yeah,
You know.
I actually practice as a keyboard warrior in Mom's basement. I get a good 90 hours.
I love
a week.
video games.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I do with
I
40
have
hours of my week.
I have trophies on COG, you know, and oh, COD, Call of Duty.
But you want to date a personal trainer.
Yeah. Well, eventually, I just don't want to pay for personal
Yeah,
training.
yeah, that's
You know?
why. Yeah.
You know, so I
Yeah.
figured date a personal trainer and I'll like osmosis. I'll get there. Yeah, I'll be David Goggins next week.
Yeah.
Motivation videos coming out of my basement.
That's right.
But I'm not, again, like, also, I'm making light of it. I'm not
yeah,
trash talking
Yeah,
people.
and there's nothing wrong with the way that people choose to live, but understand that we have values.
Alignment.
And yeah, there has to be alignment. And if you're on polar opposites, it's not going to work. And that's why it's important to talk about it.
So, and I agree completely. Now, to transition to our next one, this is a good one. What specifically makes a good partner?
Do I get to go first? Or, I keep going first. I feel
Yeah.
like
Well, it's
I
kind
feel
of like
just
a lineup,
Justin
but
should go
I think
first.
we should switch this
We
up.
should.
Yeah.
Well, I think just question to question we could go back and
Yeah.
forth. Yeah.
Let's
I
do
think
it.
Justin should get to go first.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what I mean, so I'm going to start right away with communication.
Got it.
I think we've hammered on that enough to not hammer on it a whole lot more, but a good partner's got to be able to communicate. You know, I would hope that there would be some level of shared interests, and then it comes down to, you know, caring enough about your partner that there's a certain amount of compromising or considerations or you know, I know when I'm with someone that I'm really into, like, it brings me joy to go do nice things for that person, you know.
Acts of service.
Yeah. And if you're with the right person, in turn, that person should receive it in a positive light. That's not necessarily why you do it, but you know, if the chemistry is flowing in both directions, you know, it should be received.
You should each be showing your love, and the other person should feel that love.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly right.
Yeah, instead of, you know, just one person giving giving everything, and then the other person just receiving. Right?
And you know, and I'll add one last thing. It should feel easy. Like you know, like it just kind of, it just should be a natural interest tendency to just let things roll off the tongue.
Okay, like flowing.
Yeah.
Right. Should be a
So,
flow to it.
Yep.
Yeah,
Right. Should be
I
like the
agree.
river.
I agree.
Flow easily.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I would say that and with that, there is likely a lot more behind the scenes in the sense of psychology and core values and life experiences, outlooks, things like that. Because when you're interested in the other person, it's real easy to feel a magnetism to them.
Mm-hmm.
But getting them to be interested in you, how do you get there?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
So what you're looking for in another person, right, is, you know, good communication and your ability to connect and flow with them. Sound right?
Yes,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Good. So within a good partner, there'd have to be a few more things, right? Obviously, that's on the interest and chemistry side of it to a good degree.
Mhm.
What would you say be a few other core tenets? And Misty, you can answer this if you like, and then we can go back and forth over. If you guys had to Frankenstein right now, create the Frankenstein's monster
A good partner.
of a good partner, and be like,
Okay.
this is it, man. This is the person that we create that person, and I'm walking down the aisle.
I think. Do you mind if I start?
No, please.
I think my idea of a good partner would be someone that it would always be willing and open to talk. If I say, hey, because my envision of a great relationship, and this is something that I've never truly had. It is going back to that open communication, but also I think you have to schedule that open communication sometimes. I think there has to be, I mean, if you're not in some type of like pre-couples therapy or pre-marriage therapy, then you need to schedule times to sit down and talk about the important things. So do they care about the things that you care about, right? Do they care about, and one of my big values is that I like my own self-care time, that I like my own privacy, that I need that in order to be the person that I am, that I need my own self-care. So if I tell them that I need them to value that, are they going to value it, or are they going to try to pull me away from my gym time, my cold plunge time, my all the things that make me, right? So if you're a good partner, you're going to understand that, you're not going to get offended by it, and it's going to be that you're allowing me to be me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to have our times to talk about what it means to be a couple, right? Like what it means to what is our vision together as a couple, right? We're not just, oh, you've got your vision and I've got my vision, but then where are we going? What are our plans? Why are we even doing this? You know? So there's a lot of things you can talk about as in what your vision is as a couple. Is like, where will you travel to? How much money will you save together?
Mm.
What is your plans with that money? You know, all of the big maturity areas, like together, not just separately, because you got yours separately. But if you're going to decide to be a couple, those things have to be talked about. If you combine your lives, those things have to be talked about as how you're going to do it together.
Absolutely. So if having a meaningful relationship also is what I'm hearing, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in order to have a meaningful relationship, you need to understand destination.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're not in a holding pattern in this conversation. You're in a destination conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that does require core values and worldviews and outlooks and so all of that. Is there any other values that you would look for to create, right? Like obviously we had mentioned already, if you're hanging out as a keyboard warrior and you're going to the gym, there's a big difference in the way that you see physical activity being relatable in that relationship. One's inactive, the other person's very active.
Mm-hmm. I think as far as values for me, I think honesty and just like, and I've mentioned this on the last podcast, integrity. And if you don't know what it means, you should look it up. And if you don't know if you are, you should ask the people that you know. Am I a person with integrity? I don't think a lot of people understand what integrity is, right? And I'm running into that in my life, and there's empathy is another one too. I posed that question on Facebook the other day, and I was actually kind of surprised at some of the answers that I did and didn't get. So I think understanding those terms, understanding that trustworthiness and honesty, and let's just be honest about who I am and what, even if it's not the greatest part of me. If you have certain vices or if you have things that you think that most people would be like, ugh, you better share that with me. Don't lie. Just don't lie. I'd rather you be honest and say, hey, I'm really trying to work on this. I got a drinking problem I'm trying to work on, or I smoke cigarettes or whatever. Just tell me. Don't let it come up 6 months later and then I find out. That's not integrity.
Don't tell them that. Don't tell you that they've got a meth lab in their bank.
Yeah, exactly.
I quit meth.
That's a bad thing.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a deal breaker.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Let's make sure we got some clarity here.
Yeah.
So, but that makes sense too. And what it is it's the build, right? Like you're building. Like again, if you want to have the ideal relationship, you need to know what the hell that is.
Mm-hmm.
And just as simple as describing, or what's the definition of love?
Mm-hmm.
Like, who the hell's defined it? Everybody grew up assuming they know what it is.
Mm-hmm.
But we're talking about, like Justin said, acts of service. That's one of the 5 love languages.
Right.
Right? And it brings you a great degree of value and satisfaction to be doing something meaningful and, let's say, could be flirtatious, but maybe doesn't have to be, right? Just an act of service to make somebody else's life a little bit easier or better or satisfying. Right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're going to Frankenstein this person into a real person, well, we need to know its tenets, right? Because they say the devil's in the details.
Right.
Be careful
He-
what you wish for.
You would be looking for a woman that likes acts of service, right?
Yeah, right. Or likes receiving.
Receiving acts of service, yeah.
Yeah, doesn't mean that you have to have that language back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Because that may actually
It's
be
a
a turn
different-
off to him.
Right.
It's like, that's my job.
Yeah, yeah.
You don't do acts of
exactly.
service for me. I do it for
Exactly.
you.
Yeah.
You can give me words of affirmation.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being so loving and caring for
Right.
me. And you just matter so much to me.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh God, I got something in my eye. This is too soon for you to see me cry. You know? Right?
Right.
So, right, that's because that's the way the love languages work. If you guys aren't familiar with it, it is a book that I do encourage. Actually, the relationship course that I wrote has that built into it. It's a
It's a
requirement.
fantastic book.
No,
I
it is.
recommend it pretty often
5
myself.
languages, yes. There's also, I talk about the 5 sex languages.
I have not heard of this one. Is that an actual book, or did you make this up?
It's in my course.
Oh,
Yeah, the course that I have. Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
So, and it's something, it's part of the work that I do whenever it comes to a
Intriguing.
relationship course. Yes, right? Because we have the
Yes.
love languages, but that's intimacy to what level, and where does that depart? Because we have open conversations we can have about love,
Mm-hmm.
but then there's the line of taboo,
Mm-hmm.
and you really shouldn't talk about that,
I
especially.
want to talk about it.
But if you want to talk, right, but you want to talk about it with your partner. If you're engaged
Right.
with somebody and it's your partner, not meaning engaged, getting married, just that you have somebody you're actively engaged with.
Yeah.
And then you're talking about the taboo stuff with somebody else, that can be a no-go,
Yeah.
right, or a deal breaker.
Yeah.
So where do we have training and conditioning to get us over the love languages into the sex languages,
Yeah.
right? Because like the kinks, the taboos, the things that make people feel alive when they're with their partner versus the task of sex,
Right.
right? So
Right.
this isn't a pitch to get to do my course, but if you're interested,
Yeah.
we have it, the Maturity Project.
Yeah.
All right, so if we're going to Frankenstein the person, we don't have to fully build this person out today on the show, right?
Right.
But it's a conversation to start for everybody.
Sure.
Because if you don't know what your definition of love is, well, good luck finding what you haven't defined.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go around and if you, the people that are out there watching, if you want a really interesting test, ask people to define love.
Yeah.
And don't say anything else. Let them give you their definition.
Yeah.
Because you may find out it's not yours.
Yeah.
Actually, I will tell you almost certainly you'll find out it's not yours.
Yeah.
Or you're going to find a whole lot of deer in the headlights.
Yeah.
What? Everybody knows what that is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry, you don't define something by using the same word.
Right.
Right? You don't define it by itself.
Yeah.
Right? It has to have words to define it. So what makes that great person? So, okay. All right, we'll go into some personal stories here.
Personal story.
Oh, yeah. Okay, personal stories. Which do we want, the wrecking ball or we want the field of flowers or the meadow of flowers? Which one is it that we want? The going to the theme park and your hands up in the air, the woo, this is a whole lot of fun and I love it, I want to do it again? Or the holy crap, I think my car may not run tomorrow because that person ruined my life.
Are we gonna do both, or are you just
One of each.
asking-
We'll do both. We'll do both.
Okay.
Yeah, so which side do you guys want to start off with first? You want to go with the fields of green or you want to go with the devastation and the craziness?
Let's do Fields of Green.
Yeah, let's start off with the lovey stuff.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
You alright with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
So, what is, and obviously don't put anybody's names out there.
Right.
Yeah, sure.
Because we don't want anybody coming back after us, even though it's a good story. Because you don't
Right.
want that person's wife or husband calling up going, I know that was 20 years ago, but you guys just talked about it, and I hate you.
Right. Right. Gotcha.
So, all right. Nameless. Or you can, you know what, you can make up a fake name if you want. It's up to you. So what would be the most impactful relationship and why?
It's your turn.
Are we talking about a relationship or are we talking about a date?
Whichever. So the date that turned into a relationship, or it could just be the date.
Oh, okay.
The one that left you the most impressed, and the one, like the theme park you want to go back to. Like, well, not necessarily want to go back to. You would love to have an experience like that again.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay, sure. So, you know, I'm in a much different place in my life today than I was with the example I'm about to share. But we were out and, you know, caught the attention. One of the things that we haven't talked about yet at all is, you know, physical attractiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it matters. I mean, you could, you know, love character and like love communication. I mean, at the end of the day, I gotta enjoy. I mean, I do have to enjoy looking at you.
Well, yeah.
Like without a doubt. So you know, we're out, you know, and I, you know, I made note of a particular, you know, woman, you know, in the establishment, and my buddy ordered her a drink on my behalf, and which speaks to how shy I can be in my personal life.
Mm.
So, funny part about it is she accepted it and then came across the establishment to speak to me.
Mm.
And the whole way over, I'm like, oh God. You know,
Almost like she called your bluff.
yeah. But you know, we ended up, you know, we just there was a lot of chemistry, you know, and we, you know, she was very, you know, very organized, but could be spontaneous while we were in a moment at the same time. So that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
Nice.
So was there anything specific that happened with that particular date that you guys, it was just the bonding, the connecting, that really, like, you guys just resonated with each other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like you guys like stole lobsters out of a tank and set them free in the ocean.
No, we did not. No.
You didn't run like 5 red lights and hope for the cops to chase you so you can get that adrenaline rush. It
We
wasn't
got,
like that.
we got chased out of a playground by cops.
Okay.
Yeah.
You and her that night? Or was it a different day?
It was a different night.
Okay.
But
Nice.
yeah.
A little spontaneity. You
That's
didn't plan
fun.
it, like you didn't show up at her place to pick her up and go, we're gonna go to the playground to get chased by cops. You ready?
Yeah, no. That's why you drive a Jeep Wrangler, though. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, take that hamburger. Oh wait, was this at the McDonald's Playhouse? Because I know in my youth, I really wanted to drive over that Hamburglar with a Jeep. You know, I mean, that's just a personal thing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that was the most desirable. Okay,
Yeah.
Misty, you got one that's like the we're not mentioning the dude's name or anything, but you know the.
Yeah, and it turned into a long-term relationship. It just was just the process of dating was nice. But I will tell you that when I first met him, I didn't think that I would want to continue anything with him. So, and this is kind of something that I wanted to bring up is that to any ladies or guys out there, just give somebody a chance, you know, because I had just got done reading a book, and this was, you know, almost 15 years ago. I had read this book, and it was basically telling you to date completely differently than you've ever dated before. Like, don't keep doing the same things that you've been doing, and stop just formulating opinions of someone on one date. You know, like if they actually had some qualities that you like, maybe they were just nervous, maybe they were, you know, give them the benefit of the doubt and give them another date. And so I went on a second date with him, and then I started to see new things. And then I was like, my friend was like, well, maybe you should go on a third date, you know? And I did. And then by the third date, I was like, oh my God, I think I'm in love with this person, you know? And I was. And it wasn't very long before, you know, he was like, we were like that really quickly. And the relationship lasted many years after that, and it was a great relationship until, you know, the end. There were some bad things that happened, but we just grew apart. We just weren't for each other, you know. And but just the whole experience of that made me realize that you need to give people more than the chance of just that first impression. Like, because sometimes people are shy, or they don't know really how to talk to people, or they're trying to give you what you want because that's what they think they're supposed to do, you know. And realizing that people are coming from all different areas, you know, and how they may have been raised and their backgrounds are different. So give them more than the one date if you feel like there might be something.
Yeah, unless they open their trunk and you see a bag of lime and, you know, duct tape and
exactly.
Or robbers, I don't know, ski mask, stuff like that. You might not.
Yeah. No. No, I just started along the way, just over those few dates, I noticed like some better qualities each time, better qualities, and then somebody who I didn't even find as physically attractive became more attractive.
Yeah.
Like I thought he was physically attractive. I just felt like he became a lot more physically attractive. You know, over those 3 dates. You know.
Yeah.
So,
so it's like you access different bodies, right?
Yeah.
You got his physical body, you got his emotional body, you got his knowledge base, or his cognitive body, his emotional body.
Yeah.
You really started to get to know the person, the business,
and
the
I was
finance.
like, I want this person in my life.
Right.
You know?
So right, the community. I'm going through all the 8 areas here. Okay, so here's the one that everybody loves. No, nobody really wants to do that on social media anymore, by the way. Nobody puts the good ones out there.
Yeah, I know.
Unless it's I'm so in love with this person and I've changed everything and we're now joint partners on the same profile and you know, and then it's like, okay, let's see all the crabs in the bucket waiting for them to just fail, right? For that, I told you so. Don't even try to have a good life in front of me. You know.
I have a whole different opinion about the joint Facebook account, Chad. Like,
I'm not for. Hey, everybody does their life the way they do it, right?
Yeah. I'm not going to say anything because I know too many people that have it. I'm going to keep that to myself.
Good. But the thing also, social media it's over predominant in our life, and the reason why we talk about it as much as we do is because it is part of our evolving our society. You know, we're going more towards surrogate lives. We're not having the real life as much. You know, little pieces here and there that are no longer our real life. You see this everywhere you go. People bust out their phone and take pictures of their food. It's like, eat your damn food.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I need to show the world I'm having this thing that the chef prepared and, you know, how much money I spent on it. Look at me, I'm doing really well in my life.
Yeah.
You know, the validation needs, narcissism, that kind of stuff. So,
Yeah.
but we do get to see this stuff all the time, and this is the juicy stuff. This is the ones that get the higher engagement in the marketing world. This is the good dark side.
Yeah.
So
these are the longer stories.
Ooh, the nightmares, right?
Yeah, these are like, I could give you every single little detail about it.
Right. So now, who wants to go first on the nightmare stories? Now let's see. I know you want to throw it over to Justin, but it almost feels like you're doing it on purpose.
I have a I'm ready.
But
actually, I have
Justin, you
two.
one on
I'm trying to decide which one I should tell.
Oh, no. Right?
I have more than two, but two stick out in my head.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
So, Justin, you have one at least?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this is easy.
It's an easy one? We'll start with
is.
Justin.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Justin, go ahead, buddy.
So the one that really stands out to me, that's just blatantly like, what are you doing?
Meaning you? Like, what are you doing, or what is the other person doing?
Meaning like how could she possibly be behaving
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
like this?
Yep.
Just to be fair, we're talking about a couple of people in and around 50 years old. So like, this is pretty recent. No 20-year-old, some silly stuff when you were a kid.
Someone you expect to be more mature.
100%.
Okay.
So she proactively reached out and invited me out on a Friday night. And we were meeting at an establishment, and we're kind of just gonna see see where the night took us. Well, she arrived ahead of me, which was natural for natural reasons that night. But I walked in, and she's talking to another gentleman, which I'm not a jealous human being whatsoever. But where it started to get odd was that I walked up to my date, and she took an unnatural amount of time to acknowledge that I was there. Acknowledged that I was there, and then immediately turned around and continued the rhetoric with this other guy for, again, a really unnaturally long period of time. So we order a drink, and it's just feeling weird. So, and this is someone that I spent a couple of months with up to this point, so this wasn't like a first encounter or anything like that. So I'm like, wow, subconsciously, I'm like, maybe something's on her mind. Maybe there's like something, maybe I did some silly guy stupid thing, and she's just not got the courage to say anything. So I said, why don't we get the tab and get out of here with the intent that we'll take a walk, and I can ask her in a relatively private setting if there's anything that's gnawing at her. She's like, yeah, sure. So she agreed. So she heads over to the bar to pay the tab. And it's all one room, so I have sight lines. So I look over after she's been gone for a few minutes, and she's over at the bar yakking it up with now a third separate guy while I'm sitting there alone waiting on her.
Wow.
So, being honest, I started a timer on my phone, and I said, if she gets beyond 13 minutes here, I won't be sticking around. And she did. So I approached her, and I tapped her on the small of her back, because she was facing the other way. She actually looked over her shoulder, identified that I was standing there, and turned right back around and continued the communication with this other guy.
So disrespectful.
So I just leaned in and said, "See ya, I'm out," and didn't even pause to receive a rebuttal. That was the last time I've seen and or spoken with that one.
Yeah. Sounds to me like the kind of person that typically you'll see put on their social media, can't find a good guy.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's no more good guys out there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's one that I got to give you some credit for.
Yeah.
You have great patience.
Yeah.
The fact that you even waited around that long, I know.
Yeah.
Well, can I mention one other thing?
Sure.
So, if you've got any history of the Maturity Project and my involvement with it, we talked very early on about some of my previous challenges and struggles and how those came about. Historically, I would have sat there all night and taking that all night.
Yeah.
So, not to toot my own horn, but having the strength when I needed it
Mm-hmm.
to get up and to leave as abruptly as I did was a learned behavior,
Mm-hmm.
and one I'm
Love
pretty
that.
proud of.
I
Good.
love that.
Yeah.
And we can finally realize where we're, we have value enough to where we don't have to put up with things that are is inappropriate behavior.
That's right.
Yeah.
You know?
That's right.
Yeah.
Like, these are my standards and you're not meeting them, so I'm out.
Yeah.
All right.
I gave you chances.
Yeah. So that's definitely a great growth. And by the way, I was going to ask, and I'll still ask at the end.
Mhm.
I've got a question for us after we finish
Okay.
the good and the bad, right?
Okay.
So, Misty.
Okay, so this was about 4 years ago when I had first broken up with me, and I always say this, when me and my ex broke up, that I went into dating too quickly. That I was looking for validation. Everybody that knows me knows that, and I'll admit it now. I usually tell people you should wait 6 months to a year and do some work on yourself before you just go straight on to dating sites. So with that being said, I was vulnerable. I was like wanting just any attention that I could get, right? So I'm looking on this dating site. I don't even remember which one it was, but I meet this guy who's totally not anybody that I would have normally went out with. But he had kind of this bad boy vibe, and I'm like, well, I'll show my ex, like my ex was a good guy, so I'm like, I'm gonna date this guy with and I'm not even gonna describe what made him that way, but we had some good conversations that I thought was funny. I thought this guy will be fun, and so we start, and I don't even know in my head that I was even thinking that I want a relationship with the guy, but I was expecting some respect, right? So, at least give me that. I don't even know what I wanted. Looking back at it, I don't know what I wanted. So we decide that we're somehow, with our conversations, we both had figured out that we lived within the same few blocks of each other, and that becomes important in a few minutes. Now, if anybody who knows me knows that I am partially blind and I don't drive, so he knew that I was going to be taking an Uber, right? So he right around the time of the date. Well, no, let me preface this because this is important too. I told him that day that I was going to go get a mani-pedi and that I would talk to him later. And then he says, okay, send me a picture. I thought, okay, he wants to see my nails when they look nice, even though he's going to see them in a few hours, That's not what he wanted to see. He wanted to see my feet. Because he made a comment about my feet, an overly sexual comment about my feet that I will not repeat, because it was just not repeatable on YouTube, right? We're putting this on, yeah. So a picture of my feet, and he wanted a picture, and I can't even believe I sent it now, because I'm like, I should have realized, okay, foot fetish, Anyway, my friends are all like, and you still went out with him? I did. So
for the story.
Yeah, oh yeah, because it's been a good story over all these years, yeah. So we still plan the date, even though he made that comment, and I was like, okay, I'm going to give him this as his strike one, right? So then he knows that it's about time for me to take my Uber. He gives me a call, and the guy has a work truck, and he's got his own vehicle, right? So apparently neither one of those are working at this time. He just realized it 5 minutes before I'm about to take my Uber, right? And he goes, well, since you live right down the street, why don't you just have the Uber come by here? Here's my address. And I'm like, oh, God, okay. So I didn't.
It sounds like that is not asking. It's more like giving you the suggestion that you need to take it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
Just put this in the road.
Yeah.
Not,
it wasn't
would you
even
mind?
hey, would you mind? Yeah. So he gets in the Uber and now let me just, the guy who's driving looks like a Vietnam War vet, right? Like he just looks like the type of guy that, and I think he could sense obviously that it was I had never met this guy, and based on the things that the guy was saying, the Uber driver's looking at me through the rearview mirror like, I could save you if you need it, you know, like that was that kind of situation. And because the guy sat next to me, and of course he moves himself all the way over next to me. He goes, hey, I just want to let you know that I'm so glad that you took it so well, my comment about your feet. And he said, because it goes a lot deeper than that. And he's like, I have a lot of special kinks and fetishes. And I'm like, oh, here we go. This is what the first date. This is what this is going to be like, you know. And he said, instead of telling you, I think I'll just show you. So he pulls out his phone, and in the Uber, we have not even reached to the place that we're going on a date. And in the Uber, he shows me basically what I could describe best as a sex dungeon. Yeah, like built into his home, where his 20-year-old daughter and his 19-year-old son live, right? So I'm thinking, your kids live there with you, and this is the kind of role model you are, and I am nothing, again, I'm not a prude by any means. I'm actually very sexually open. I like to try new things, but that doesn't matter. If you're showing me that on the first date, it doesn't matter what I like and what I don't like. You have set the tone. You basically have scared the shit out of me. Like, what are you about to do to me? Yeah, but yeah, and other things too that I don't even want to describe because again, improper, right? And so I'm thinking right then, how do I get out of this? How do I get out of this? And then the Uber driver's looking at me like, yeah, I'm not letting this guy do anything. Like, you know, he's not saying a word, you know, but I just feel like this Uber driver, he's got me if I need him, you know. And so we get downtown, and this is like right after COVID. Everything was just starting to open back up. The pier had just opened, and we stopped at Doc Ford's, right? And we were gonna go and like have a drink and have an appetizer there. So as soon as I get there, I go to the bathroom and I text my friends who I knew were also out, and I said, hey, I need you guys to come over here and act like you just ran into me, and I need you to say, oh hey, we can drive you home if you want, and then I can make my exit quickly, and that's what I did.
Okay.
So. Yeah.
Good. So you got away from
Dr. I got away from him before there was any. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Worst experience ever. I was scared. I was literally like, what did I do? Like how did I not? And so then of course you just, you know, you second guess yourself after that. You're like, okay, maybe I'm not ready to date yet. And I wasn't.
Well, I would say that as far as like one, that's actually a pretty crazy thing, and it's bold. And I'll tell you, it's definitely a quick way of qualifying or disqualifying somebody.
Oh yeah.
Because you get past first date, you know, it's going to be.
He said,
some,
you know,
some
so many women
stuff
that I've met, like they're not into what I'm into, and I'm thinking, I mean, as a psychology person who's worked in psychology, my first thoughts were, what did this guy go through?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, I have that empathy to go, okay, this didn't just happen overnight, you know, but then again, I didn't even want to delve into it with him. I was like, you know, I'm not that attracted to you.
Yeah, that is, well, and I mean, the world is full of all types.
Yeah.
Right? And I guarantee you, there's going to be somebody out there that would be like, that is my soulmate.
Yeah.
Right?
I hope he found her, honestly. Yeah. Like, I mean, but I did tell him, I said, you should put that in your profile, because that is a very special type of kink. You know, that's not you're just your average.
Well, there's also,
most people
there are dating sites for those people.
Yes.
You know,
exactly. And I told him that too.
There's places,
yeah.
There's apps like that.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
Yeah. Because I definitely.
And I have no judgment on what anyone likes. That's not what it is. It's more about the delivery.
Yeah.
And when I've told other people that story, especially men, they'll be like, well, I got to give it to the guy for telling you up front what he likes, because we just talked about communication. Mm-hmm. But it was his delivery, right? If you would have waited a few weeks and maybe slowly spoon-fed me that stuff, who knows what would have happened?
Yeah,
you know?
You might have got some incredibly good foot massages, right? I mean, you would have been out there on nothing but like cloud 9 feet. You know? I mean, your feet would be incredibly exfoliated. Cucumbers and everything waiting bedside. Just there you go. It's a nice little dash. Maybe a little dill seasoning on there. So it's what's fascinating
so
to me.
fun.
But like that's also like, look, we're not those people to really down somebody for it. Like you said, it's like, and I'm saying is also is that there are those people, right? A lot of
Yes.
times those people have to do their own underground thing. Hence, also he's doing a numbers game thing. He's just trying to run through as much as possible so he can finally.
Yes.
Because his is not likely going to be traditional sex satisfies.
Right.
He needs to get the kink.
Right.
I mean, obviously, he's telling you like as soon as you pick him up in the Uber.
Yeah.
You know, he had you put him on there like the grocery store. You know, it's like, hey, just swing by and pick me up. You know.
Yeah.
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 So, I take it he didn't know exactly where you lived.
No, thank
Okay.
God.
Good.
Well, and I think it was kind of a situation where he was like, why don't I call the Uber and you give me your address? And I'm like, no, that's a rule number 1. Nobody knows where I live
Oh yeah.
until I'm comfortable with who they are, you know?
Good on you. Good on you.
Yeah.
We won't read about you in the paper.
Yeah, exactly.
Good. So, all right. Since we've gone through quite a bit, and it's not like, okay, we're making this the only episode we're ever going to do on relationships, because it's a very big, important, and meaningful conversation. And it is a major driver for people. You're not going to have people like, okay, I read one book on relationships, I'm good the rest of my life.
Mm-hmm.
We have reasons why we got where we are. We have lost the structure that a lot of us had abilities to be coached in, which is, again, from what I mentioned earlier in the episode, is that religion played a big role in the way that we dated and our relationships went. It wasn't about promiscuity. It was about abstinence. It wasn't about, okay, well, dating multiple people to find out what you like. It was you found one person, you liked them enough, and then you went off and you got hitched, you had kids, you did your thing. Started young, and then you got the next generation ready and up and running. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So what I think is really interesting is now that we have so many different options when it comes to relationships, the types of relationships, the structures that we have. You know, we have people that are asexual, that you mentioned, like women with their menopause, that you mentioned earlier. They get to the point where they're not really enjoying sex that much anymore, and they hope that their partner, because they want other parts of relationships, not just the sex, that their partner will understand it and honor it. You know, and think that could be something that could be dismissed or at least accepted that it's not going to be a part of it.
Yeah.
So we have polygamy, we have ethical non-monogamy, we have all of these other structures. We're not really discussing that one in this episode, but there's different types to have. Today's conversation is just to break the ice a little bit.
Right.
We have people that are in their 40s. Justin, we'll pull you back a year.
I appreciate that. Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, you're not the outsider.
No.
No. So he's 49 plus 1, so it's 49.
Yeah.
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 He's very young at heart.
That's right.
Yes. So we have that, right? And now we have the years that we've been dealing with this. We've all had the opportunity to date pre-email, pre-internet. Everything from, I like you, do you like me, yes or no? And then the little hand thing or the paper, like the little early origami where you give yourself the lifelong injury of a finger sprain. You pick purple, you give me a kiss. And it's like, that's not my rule, it's the paper, it said it. And the porn sites, when they finally came up, you needed to validate it with your age. You needed to remember exactly what year you were born. Or what year would at least give you access. So, so we had all these things that have come up, and now we have it's like we're so sophisticated in our society, but it's turned into the Wild West. It's like gunslingers walking around going, you know what my favorite artist is? Well, Miley Cyrus and Taylor Swift. And it's like, look, when you have people that make a living off of damaging relationships, and what I say by that is, by the way, if you notice that you really don't have a lot of positive relationship songs like the Happy Ever After coming out of Taylor Swift.
No.
It's usually like the last dude I dated, I wrote an entire album for him. And then you got I took a Louis
She wouldn't even be famous if it wasn't for all of her, all of her breakups.
Yeah, right.
I'd be worried if I was Travis Kelce. I'd be worried. What's she gonna say?
Right. Well, that's probably gonna give her 5 albums. Right,
exactly.
So it's like you're a train wreck. Here's a label. Sign right there. You're coming on board. By the way, here's an interesting fact. So do you know who really made Taylor Swift famous? Who gave her really first big break?
Tim McGraw?
No. Close, though.
Okay.
Yeah. He's in the genre. He was actually as big of a name. Actually, I think he's a bigger name than Tim McGraw.
Like Brad Paisley?
No,
Was it? No.
he's not
Who's it?
bigger.
Garth
No, no. Was it Garth Brooks? I don't think so.
No, he's got friends in low places though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Train wrecks in low places. It was
Kenny.
Toby Keith.
Toby Keith,
Yeah.
really?
Oh, yeah, he made a lot of money with her.
I did
Yeah.
not know that at all.
Yeah.
If he had lived to this point to see what she became, I don't think he just died.
Yeah.
But she also recently came out with a whole new push into society. So, and I'm not out to bash Taylor Swift, by the way. She's a person doing what people do. I know there's layers to everything, and what
Yes.
you see on the surface is not what's there.
And it could be
is-
exactly what they want us to see.
It's
So
it.
to
It's
create
everything. Yeah.
a certain type of media
Same
and
thing with
content.
Travis.
Yeah.
Her boyfriend. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm sorry, I don't believe.
Yeah,
it's
no,
a
same here.
relationship.
But I do
Um,
believe in PR and why
Mm-hmm.
you would do certain things for certain reasons.
Yeah.
You know.
I believe in the Diddy files.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, not connecting the two of them, but you never know what the hell is going on behind the veil of Hollywood. But the point of
Right.
it is that we model relationships based off what we perceive,
Right.
right? And then we get people that make businesses out of it. There's little money in successful relationships,
Mm-hmm.
but there's a whole lot of money in dysfunctional relationships.
Mm-hmm.
As we were talking before the recording, because we got to do an outro here, or we got to finish up the episode, but I want to touch on this before we go. And that is, in the beginning, we talked about there's little money in the cure. If anything, there's a terminal element to the cure,
Right.
because once the cure is distributed, it is very likely the thing that's there, right? Like nonprofits.
Mm-hmm.
If there was a cure for the thing that the nonprofit was founded for, will the nonprofit continue to exist? Well, we would altruistically say, of course, and it would go away, and it'd be happy to die. It'd be happy to go away.
Right.
But that's not how businesses work. Nonprofits are still a business structure. It's a nonprofit business structure.
Right.
So you have things like that, right? I'm not going to go any further because I do have some pretty hot takes on some pretty controversial statements, and being the holistic health field that we've
Oh,
both
yeah,
occupied,
there's so much
we
of that.
have a different view than the mainstream.
Yes. We'll do an episode on that.
Yeah, right. We need
Just
to-
that.
Right. Well,
That's a good one.
that's going to be a series.
Yeah.
We need to get Robert F. Jr. in here.
I know. I know. I
Jesus,
agree.
getting
I
married,
agree.
yeah, healthy again. So with that, there are also people that make a living out of getting people into relationships, but their business model would not be to truly create a successful one. So as you've already dealt with earlier this week, Misty, there's people that deal with that, right? They bring this stuff up. You put something
Dating
out there.
coaches. Yeah.
Yes.
That's what you could call them.
Yes. Yeah. And what would be the deal with that? Like, right, it can be a lucrative business,
Yes.
but any business that doesn't have repeat customers has to put a lot of effort into the acquisition of the first-time customer.
Mm-hmm.
That's why a lot of companies go for figuring out how they can make repeats to the original.
Right.
How can I get you to come back?
Right.
So there's a lot of money out there. There's a lot of books that are written. There's a lot of things when it comes to that. But when money gets involved with something that is a standard human behavior, there's a pretty good chance that there'll be a system that encourages people to have that destructive side.
Mm-hmm.
That lets everything that I'm teaching you to put up on the front end, there's going to be purposeful pieces that'll help take it all apart.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to teach you to be we're going to teach you to be more selfless.
Mm-hmm.
But yet they're teaching you to be selfish the entire time.
I think another thing that's important to remember too is just the monetization of so many things like dating sites, like matchmaking services, dating coaches, relationship. I mean, it's just an endless. It's the same way in fitness. It's the same way in everything. If you can find a way to monetize, to make money off of something, we have to be leery of that. We have to kind of are wary of that. You just have to kind of sit back and go, okay, are they just trying to get my money? I mean.
Yeah. So it's the ethical versus non-ethical capitalism, right? I'm the advocate for ethical capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
So create the end product. This is it.
Right.
Teach me how to not be an asshole, right? Teach me how to create a loving long-term relationship.
Right.
And if you don't have that core tenet in what you're going through, you're likely just learning how to become a roster piece in somebody else's roster.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with your guys' insights from today's conversation, perspectives on today's recording, what would you like to offer as, hey, these are kind of my closing remarks on this? Is there something specific, and we'll start with Justin on this
Okay.
one. Is there something specific that's your, you know what, I want to offer you guys watching? Like, this is my gift to you today from watching. This is what I really would like you to take away from what we went over. Or, actually, we'll do that first, then there's another question that'll come after this, after we go through the series.
Sure. So, I guess naturally I want to direct this to the ladies. Be kind. You know, you carry a responsibility to yourself and to the community in general. That while I want to appreciate that safety and your protection is critically, that has to be number one. You know, give a guy a chance, you know, be considerate, be responsive, even if the communication isn't favorable. Communication is always paramount. And in all honesty, if you're in a space where you're not prepared to do that, then be honest with yourself and don't interject yourself into the space. You know, my partner here, Misty, mentioned, you know, sometimes there's a season of your life to reflect in and maybe go through some of your own self-improvement.
Yeah.
Fair?
Beautiful. Yeah, and I'd also like to add that for Justin too, is that the nice guy is often the one that one wants to disregard.
Yeah.
You know, the good guy, the one that everyone says, there's no good guys left.
Yes, there are.
Yeah, there's a lot of them
you're,
left.
You're looking for the wrong ones.
Yep. Yeah, right?
Yeah.
So, but the good guy might not show up seeming like the most exciting guy on the first round,
Right.
first impression,
Right.
because he's a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But you're not even giving him the chance.
Exactly. So keep that in mind. I would
Yeah.
add that to the
Yeah.
insight.
Yeah, that's
So,
a good point.
Yeah.
Thank you.
so, and Misty.
Yeah, I think, and I've obviously pulled a lot of takeaways from this. I just, I was going to say something very similar to that, but just, yeah, give people a chance, you know? I mean, I think that's just something I've learned in my years of dating. No one is going to be who they really truly are right off the bat, you know, especially if this is your first time meeting them. So I think giving someone a chance, realizing if you can't look into the future and think of what you want, then perhaps you don't need to be dating, unless, of course, you have structured your dating in a way that you're telling someone this is just going to be a hookup, you know. But if it's not about hookup for you and you do really want a partner, really sit down and figure out what you want. Don't be trying to figure it out while you're on a date with them and they're asking you, well, hey, what are your values? And you don't even know your values, you know?
Right.
And if you haven't figured it out, then I might suggest going to a therapist or going to some type of group or or taking a course or reading a book. There is so much information out there about becoming a better person. It's on YouTube, it's everywhere. We live in the world of information. So don't just think that you got it all together, even if you are 45 or 50 years old or older. You don't have it together. You can always learn more. Don't have a biased view and work on yourself and get to be someone who is dateable before you just go looking for that perfect person. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, subscribe to the Maturity Project. I
Yeah.
think that's what you're saying.
Yeah, subscribe to the Maturity Project.
That's right.
Yeah, and look, you gotta live life, right? And what I'm hearing here is also, you gotta live life.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be people to guide us as we're practicing this thing called life. And we're gonna live it. May as well live it in a way that you can pick up the lessons along the way, get the excitement, and don't lose track of your values, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, don't find the right person. Be the right person.
Right.
Don't wait for the person to show up in your life to fix your life. Fix your damn life.
It's like when they say be the change you want to see. I mean,
Yes.
seriously, if you aren't it, how are you going to find it? If you're hanging out in bars all the time and you don't want to find a barfly, then stop hanging out in bars,
It's like this is like, look, if you're waiting to find the right person, you're immediately straddling them with a debt. Because as soon as they're there to fix the thing that you have that's your problem, that's their responsibility now. It's not yours.
Yeah.
That's a debt. That's on top of who they already have to be themselves.
Mm-hmm.
You're giving them a servitude. Now, look, relationships are not supposed to be built from, meaningful, long-term relationships are not supposed to be built on servitude. They're supposed to be built on collaboration and the desire to achieve each other's goals with each other. It is a bonding long term. But if you make it that, nope, you got to fix this about me, that sounds very narcissistic.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to fault you for it. Right now, who the hell is teaching us not to be narcissistic?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You spend time on the toilet learning to be a narcissist because you're on social media. That's conditioning you to say the only way you're going to get the likes is to show you're an asshole.
Yeah.
Puppies and kitties don't really get a whole lot of likes on social media anymore.
Yeah.
So we got to figure out how we're going to outgrow this thing. We need to take our power back, mature ourselves so that society is not guided by technology that's outpacing our ability to mature.
Yeah.
So if we want to change the world, we need to be the change we want to see.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's not make it
Absolutely.
cliche. Let's make it actionable.
Yeah.
So with that, today's episode was a fantastic one. You two, awesome people. Look, we got lessons to learn. We got great takeaways. Okay. What is your takeaway that you got today you did not have? And then we'll finish up. So, Misty, we'll start with you. Something that you did not have before today's conversation that now is a different perspective that's your takeaway.
I think I have more of a genuine male point of view on how it feels when women, treat them certain ways, when treat them inappropriately, like they don't deserve that. So, I think, not that I didn't know that it happened, but I mean to hear it in a story from someone else that, it's like that he doesn't deserve that, Like he's just a human just like me, man or woman. Like no one deserves to be treated that way. And he obviously wasn't being an asshole because we both know Justin.
Yeah.
So he wasn't being a jerk. So
Thank you for that.
you're welcome. So that's kind of my biggest takeaway is like, wow, some people are they're just assholes. And but women could really learn a lot from that type of situation. Like just give people the benefit of the doubt and have open communication.
I love it.
Yeah.
What a great takeaway.
Yeah. Thank you.
Justin, what's yours, brother?
Yeah, I mean, I would say just the opposite, right? I mean, to have a female's point of view, and not, not to pump you up too much, Misty, but we're not talking about your average woman here at all.
Thank you.
So we've got a communicator that does make you feel welcome and so on and so forth. I could go on and on, but like it's, and I want to say I think I knew, I'd heard some horror stories about how men behave,
Mm-hmm.
but that's so far out of left field from anything that I would ever even remotely consider, that it's still hard to hear it.
Yeah.
Because and what it's doing is that it's, to me, subconsciously as a society, like that is creating a habit in, the regard to, people having a guard up.
Well, yeah, it's making you feel like that must be how everyone is, right?
Right.
It's creating this kind of like oh, that, it's making us all look bad. Like what women are doing is making all the women look bad, and what these kind of assholes are doing is making men look bad, right?
Right.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah. But I think the important part is that it's a learned behavior, though.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't. I mean, I think there's a lot of folks out there today that are carrying that around from one meetup to the next, to the next one after that. And we need to do, like if I could do anything, gosh, you'd love to be able to break that trend.
Yeah.
Because it does take on I think it does generally take on a little bit of a snowball effect.
Yeah.
So.
Well, people do tend to keep doing what works. So at some point, those things do work for them in a weird, kind of twisted way. So I can see what you're saying. Yeah.
And I would say that the weird, twisted way is that no one was there to guide them about what's the most efficient.
Right.
And that's just them figuring out in a feral way.
Right.
In the wild of it.
Right. Like animals just figuring out, well, that's food. I can go and kill that fast and eat it, even though it might not be good for me.
Right.
Yeah.
So you guys have been fantastic. Now over to the viewers. 3 things. I'm going to ask you guys for just 3 little pieces here. First one is, and don't put anybody's name. Don't put them on blast, okay? Because we've all had our wonderful experiences here. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Who has a story to share for the community maturity? Because we got a lot of people that are involved with us, right? Community maturity. What is, if you don't mind sharing your story in the comments section, that is, what was one of your most desirable dates that you've been on, or most desirable relationships you've had, that you would like to have something like that again if you don't have it? What is one of the nightmares, the wrecking ball experiences that you've had? If you want to share that as well, I think we can probably pick those up all over the place, but I'd love to hear from you guys being our viewers. And then the third one is, and thanks for the work, by the way, third one is this. What's your takeaway from today's conversation? What's the thing that you got out of today's conversation you're willing to take and put into action, or willing to share with somebody else, or the thing that is going to continue to occupy your mind for a little bit longer? Love to hear from you guys. I know that they would as well, my team here, wonderful co-hosts, right? I know that we would all love to hear from you guys. So not just through emails, let's get it on the channel, let's get it in the comments section. If you haven't already subscribed, hit that subscribe button. I know you guys have heard it, you've heard it a lot, but it's how we content creators grow, and we also, helps us understand that what we're doing is really making a difference. So share this conversation with somebody you want to make a meaningful conversation with. If you're gonna make changes in your life, people that you love, that you know and are close to you, that are part of your support system, if they don't know you're making change, they won't know why you're going through the stress that you're going through when they do see it. And they're likely going to want to put you back where you were before. They're going to want to bring you back to when they knew you were happiest, where you felt the most content. You weren't as depressed, you weren't as stressed. They're not doing it any other reason other than it's an empathetic bond. They're not being a crab in a bucket on purpose. They're just trying to care for you. They don't know you're up to something. So share this conversation with them. Get them to understand you're up to something so that you can make the changes and not have your support systems pull you back. Okay? It's done out of love most of the time. So this is the Maturity Project. I'm your host, Chad Everbro Shears. Now, if you guys want to give something as far as like how do we get in touch with you guys, and then we'll finalize it and close out the episode.
I am Misty Coaches on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn.
Fantastic, Misty. And Justin.
I am Justin Ropel on Facebook and LinkedIn only.
Yeah.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Yes.
So, if you guys like to find them, reach them, you can get them through the means that they just shared with you. Though, if you would like to reach us offline, you can send it over to an email to me at yourmaturityproject@gmail.com. That's yourmaturityproject@gmail.com. If you're interested in the relationship course as well, which pretty hot topic right now, we do have that. We can start the conversation and see where we can go with it. All right, till next time, let's get up to something. Let's get up to it together. And don't forget, just because you made a mistake yesterday and you failed at something doesn't mean you can't use that to be successful tomorrow. All right, let's go. See ya.